tree. The same tree?
Psst, they're coming. Places, everybody.
Light check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Everything looks good on our end.
And lights.
Come alive with the forest. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
You turn on the television or you pick up a newspaper magazine, and all the information you see is just controlled by a handful of corporations. So how are you or I or any of us, how can we get our messages out to people? How can you tell people what you care about? You can go on Facebook and compete with hundreds of people who post things that may or may not be true. You can go on Twitter and post things with a handful of characters, because Twitter is really the place for literate people to hang out. Or you could go in with a sandwich board and walk the streets. You could write a letter to the editor. Or, even better, you could go to public access television. Public access serves your community on a first-come, first-served basis. And whether you're rich or poor, doesn't matter. It's first come, first served. Everyone in the community is welcome to come to public access and talk about not only the issues that are important to them, but if you have a poem to recite, a story to tell, a song to sing, just anything at all that's in your mind or a heart to tell, you come to public access. Public access in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where I'm speaking right now, has been around since 1980, and I've seen it change events in Fayetteville. And the nice thing about public access now in the 21st century is that it's not just on a television channel, but it's also on the internet, so you can reach people around the world. So if you feel frustrated at not being able to talk to people, not being able to get your message out, and you think there's no way to do it, well, take heart, there is. Public access, it's a vital component of our First Amendment rights. So public access, like the man says, use it or lose it.
Hi, my name is Miguel Guevara, and you're watching Fayetteville Public Access Television.
Champion jig.
Hi, with us today is Clarke Buehling. Clarke, how are you?
Good, I'm good. How are you, Richard?
Fine. Now, Clarke, not only are you a musician of note, but you're a past guest on the show.
Yes, it's been 21 years.
21 years, way back in the wild and woolly days of the 20th century.
I don't know if you have me any more often. I don't know how I'll schedule it.
Well, if we do it like 20 years from now, oh no, we can't. I don't know. We better both stay healthy.
Yeah.
If we do it 20 years from now.
Yeah.
But anyway, how have things been?
No.
In the last 21 years.
Interesting, yeah. I raised a family and been many places, traveled, and
You've been to Germany.
yeah, several times.
Now, that's what I want to ask you first. How did you get to Germany?
Well, my first answer is airplane.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's how I got there in 1969.
That's the way to go these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would take the Lusitania, but it's not available.
No, and that's not a good history.
No. I had made a friend with, well, here's the story. I had a contact in Germany because years ago I taught banjo in Boston, and there was a Harvard student from Germany taking banjo lessons from me. He somehow, although he was studying at Harvard, he had time enough to take banjo lessons, and he got hold of me years later. He found me on the internet or something. And I said, well, I'd like to go over there. He says, well, that's good because now I'm the head of my department here in English and, American and Canadian studies. I can pay for a performance for you to come over here. And that was enough to pay my airfare. And so I connected with a banjo weekend, banjo teaching weekend in northwestern Germany. And the professor was in Saarbrücken in Southwest. And so through those two contacts, I went over there several times and worked up small tours.
Now, we've seen what kind of music you play, but how would you describe the sort of music that you play and specialize in?
The music I'm playing here today is known as classic or concert-style banjo. It was popular from 1880s up until jazz, First World War.
Does banjo music does it wane in popularity and then come back again?
Yeah, it comes back. Whenever there's a new movie, there's more interest in bluegrass.
Yeah.
Primarily, I'm interested in the older styles, and a lot of that is because I own a large library of banjo music published here in the United States. I had early on worked on British pieces.
Yeah.
Because when I went to England, I met with players who played concert style.
Right.
And they still had music for sale there. That was in 1970.
Wow.
And you could still buy sheet music for 2 banjos or banjo and piano. And so I bought up some of that and kept in touch with the British players.
Yeah.
And I learned quite a number of British pieces. They have they currently have a live interest, I'm going to say, they maintain the older style.
Yeah.
They maintain it among amateurs, some very good amateurs. Things like the Aston Banjo Club.
Yeah.
Where they used 5-string banjos, 4-string, 8-string bass banjos. That helped keep it alive through the 30s and 40s.
How many strings is this banjo?
5-string banjo.
5-string.
The 5-string banjo is pretty much the original banjo. I mean, I'm not going back. Yes, there were 2 and 3 and 4-string gourd banjos on the plantations in 1780s.
And you've played those. And you've played those before, haven't you? Gourd banjos?
Yes, I've made gourd banjos, and I've also played on the what may be the African antecedents of the banjo, the accounting.
Right.
I have an accounting and have played some of the music on it. I don't maintain a repertoire on it. And then the interest, my interest follows the development of the banjo.
Yeah.
And it really took off in about 1830s, 1840s with the early performers, Joel Sweeney and some of the Virginia minstrels in New York City in the 1840s. And some of that music has come down to us in books in written form, which I call early recordings.
Right.
So that was the early recordings before cylinders, before discs. So I use the early recordings to learn from. Through the Civil War, there were still books being put out by the professional performers, like Frank B. Converse, and he was really big, came out with many books. The Buckleys, Sepp Winter, those people, Tom Briggs, and they played on fretless instruments. The frets, the little bars, hadn't been added yet.
Yes. You did a piece by Frank P. Converse last time you were on the show.
Frank B. Converse.
Yeah, B.
But
Converse.
P is on his gravestone.
Okay.
But it's a misspelling.
Really? Okay. Yeah, Frank B. Converse. Last time you were on the show, you did a piece by him, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sure I did.
But P is on his gravestone. Okay.
Oh, well, that's all we can hope for.
Yeah. How did you become interested? How did you become interested in not only the banjo, but this period of history and with the music?
Well, I worked into my interest in the period gradually, but my initial interest was in the 60s.
Yeah.
Popular groups were Kingston Trio.
Oh, yeah.
And Pete Seeger. And so I was listening to that, but I didn't really get the bug until, what's his name? Hobart Smith. Hobart Smith came and played. I got to sit to him about close as you are to me.
Right.
He played the banjo. He also played fiddle and piano, and but the banjo really grabbed me right then, and I went out and got my first banjo in the 1960s. And fortunately, one of the first things I bought to learn from was a book written in the 19th century notation.
Yeah.
And I was a piano player, so reading was not foreign to me, and then it was a natural way for me to approach it since there weren't people around me playing it. So this book was a transposing musical notation. But once I understood what was happening, it wasn't difficult for me to do that. But that allowed me to read all this music that I've since collected that others have let go because they don't want to learn to transpose.
No. So are you self-taught on the banjo then?
Up to a point. I think I played for a number of years, maybe 7 years, before I found the perfect teacher. And let's see, it would have been the early 1970s, just after I'd gotten back from England with some sheet music for a couple of cakewalks, cakewalk marches to play on 5-string banjo.
From the old minstrel shows, cakewalks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The people today don't understand what the cakewalk was then.
No.
They have a musical chairs version of it now, but it's we could do a whole hour on what the cakewalk was. But it was a dance contest.
Yeah.
And the music for those was generally a marches and syncopated, and it was just leading into ragtime.
Right.
And so I had this music, I was learning this music, and a housemate in Berkeley, his girlfriend was listening to it, said, you know, my banjo teacher played that stuff. He lives in Connecticut. and I was in California.
Yeah.
I said, well, give me his number. And I went out to Connecticut and took a few lessons, and went back and forth a few times, and was able to study from Frank Bradbury. And he was president of the American Banjo Fraternity, which is focused on the concert-style banjo. And they meet out in Pennsylvania twice a year, or upstate New York,
Yeah.
or here and there. And so I got in touch with them and started mingling with other people who could play this, and I had to go that far to find them. But they're scattered out around the country a little more, and it's a little more popular than it was in the early 70s. A little more. There are a few players.
At least you're able to find more.
Yeah, at least people have heard of it now.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, their first experience with banjo music in the 70s was Deliverance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time the Bonnie and Clyde or Deliverance or something came out with a banjo
Right.
theme, then suddenly there's, people are selling banjos and making banjos.
Yeah, you hear Foggy Mountain Breakdown. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. You either want to rob a bank or buy
We're
a banjo.
about due for another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
We're about due for another banjo piece I need an upsurge in my my teaching clientele.
And you do teach too, don't you?
Yes, I
Yeah.
teach banjo and guitar too, fiddle and mandolin.
How hard is it to learn the banjo? Compared to other instruments?
Depends what you want to do with it, and depends if your hands are good.
Yeah.
You can play. You can have fun with simple things. If you want, you can take it as far as you want,
Yeah.
and you can play any kind of music on it.
Yeah.
So you can play classical music. You can play bluegrass. You can play jazz. Yeah. Woodland Park Waltz.
Is it an expensive thing to get into, playing the banjo?
No. Lessons are inexpensive.
What about the banjos themselves?
The banjos are, you can get anywhere, you can spend anywhere from, a couple $100 up till $20,000.
Wow.
Depends what your,
Yeah.
some people want to start right at the top,
I think, because I think kids get banjos when they're kids.
They make smaller banjos now.
Do they really?
Yeah, they do. They make, there's a little half-size one, and then I've seen three-quarter size. They made these in ages past.
Really?
Different sizes because they fit the orchestra.
I just think of ukulele when you say a smaller banjo. I think of the ukulele.
I have a ukulele
Yeah?
banjo. Yeah. It's about that size. The piccolo
Yeah.
banjo is that
Okay.
size. The banjorine's about the size of the available
Banjarine?
child's banjo.
Okay.
The banjarine, yeah. That was in the 1880s. That was supposed to be the violin of the banjo orchestra. The
Really?
lead main instrument, and the others were, there's a piccolo that was smaller, but the larger instruments were all taking the place of the viola and the cello, and they were trying to reconstruct an American music based on the idea of the violin family.
So is that like tangerine only with a B instead of a T?
It'd be
The banjarine?
No, it'd be French. Banjaeaurine.
Okay.
But sometimes you saw it with an O.
Okay.
O-R-I-N-E.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up after the show and
Oh
see
yeah.
what they look like. Yeah.
The banjarine. I have all the different, or most of the different sizes.
Yeah.
I've had a bunch of banjos lying about. I fall over them. I'm going to get impaled one of these days. That's probably be my death.
when you say when you say you have a bunch of banjos lying around, what does that mean?
Well, I don't know. I've got 2 piccolo banjos, 2 banjarines, several standard banjos. By the way, I string them with nylon instead of steel.
Why?
In the old tradition of gut strings.
Okay. Then didn't they used to use catgut, or is that just
Yeah,
something
sheep-
I read? Yeah.
sheep gut.
Okay, sheep gut. Okay.
But they say catgut, yeah. Let's see, I have a cello banjo, which plays an octave lower.
How do you play a cello banjo? Does it stand up or does it?
It's big enough to put in your lap.
Okay.
But it looks funny. Mostly bass lines. But you can do more than bass lines, but that's where
What's
it's
your
best.
favorite? What's your favorite banjo?
Right now, I think this one.
Yeah.
When I'm playing at the farmer's market, I play another one, an S.S. Stewart banjo that's with a plastic skin, plastic head on it, all weather, you know.
Yeah. What kind of skin is this?
This is calf skin.
Calf skin. Okay.
Yeah, calf.
Now, when you play at the farmers market, is it by yourself? You play with a group called Highballers too,
Yeah,
right?
the Ozark Highballers.
Ozark Highballers.
I hope you get them in here soon.
I would like to do that.
I play just as a backup instrument.
Yeah.
Primarily with that group. This banjo has a little different sound to it. It's open back. It's a Bacon banjo.
A bacon banjo?
Yeah, Fred Bacon
Okay.
designed this. Fred Bacon was out in, was from Vermont and
Yeah.
opened a banjo manufacturer in Connecticut, Groton, Connecticut. And in fact, he was my teacher's teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I like this. I have another Bacon that's a little longer in the
Yeah.
neck. It has a little problem, a little bump or something, so it's not in as good a shape. It's a little more difficult to play on, but it's loud.
How long do strings usually last?
Oh, the strings, well, until you feel impressions of the frets. They're pretty durable.
Okay.
You can almost not break them by tightening them.
Okay.
So yeah, they're very good. I've played on real gut strings, and they're pretty durable too if you're
Okay.
careful with them and don't use your fingernails.
Okay. Yeah.
I use the just the soft tips of my
Yeah.
fingers when I can. Sometimes I hit a nail by mistake.
Yeah. Now, what is the American Banjo Camp? Because you're an instructor there, right? Or you have been an instructor
No,
there.
I've never taught at the
Okay,
at
see,
the northern. Let's see. Oh yeah, I did teach at the American.
Yeah.
The ABC. I did Fort Flagler.
The internet never lies.
That's right. I'm a mix. There are about 6 of these banjo camps, or maybe more. I was thinking of the Northern Banjo Camp in Massachusetts or someplace.
Yeah.
I've not done that. I've taught at the Fort Flagler
Yeah.
in Washington State, and I've done one in Lansing, Michigan. But there's not, problem is there's not demand for what they think I can do.
Really?
So they don't get enough people signed up for my classes.
Oh.
Maybe I don't describe them right. I don't know. People don't think that this is authentic or something. So I'm trying to understand what it is that they don't hire me more often.
Maybe they should. I don't know. Have they seen you play? They've seen you play, right?
Oh yeah, they see me play.
I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Now you also perform with the Mandolin Orchestra of Northwest Arkansas, haven't you?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
And also have a little group of my own in here in Fayetteville, but we haven't been able to find any work. We do 2 mandolins and guitar and cello.
Yeah.
Keep losing our guitar player. Every time I'm ready to go out and show out somewhere, the guitar player leaves town. So.
They're a flighty bunch.
They are.
Guitar players.
I tell you, they're all in California. I think maybe everything's weighted over that way. Kind of flow over there. I can't find a darn guitar player can read music.
Yeah.
Who cares to play in a quartet?
Now, you've actually released several CDs over the years too, haven't you?
Yeah, I have several. I have to reissue a couple of the older ones. They're still cassettes.
Oh, at least they're not 8-tracks.
Yeah, they're not 8-tracks, but I have to finish up the early ones that I made. Do you remember Hawk Hubbard?
Yeah,
When
the
he
name, yeah.
lived here playing
Yeah.
the fiddle with us?
Yeah.
I have a tape that had him on it. Now that a tape, cassette needs to go to CD. I'm so behind on updating things.
That's an expensive process too, getting your stuff switched over to CD.
Yeah, it is. I don't have the backup. I guess I could do one of these. What do they do on Facebook? They get everybody to give them money to do a project. What's that called? I suppose I could do that.
I don't know, givememoney.com or something like
Yeah,
that.
right.
I know what it is. I can't.
I know,
It's
kinda hate
like it's
to
out of
do
my head
that,
right now.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like that. That's how they financed the Veronica Mars movie. Yeah. I
Oh,
know.
is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know this endless trivia goes inside my head and out the other, you know. But and besides going to Germany, you've also been around the country too, though, to perform.
Oh, here and there.
Yeah.
In April, the Ozark Highballers went to Brooklyn, New York, for the Brooklyn Folk Festival. We flew out there and flew back. We didn't have any other gigs.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I went out last summer. I went east, went out to the Charlie Poole contest in North Carolina. And I went up to, up to Brooklyn to precede going up there for the folk festival. Helped to convince them that they want us. Toured around. I guess I drove about 4,000 miles before I got home. Went to Maryland, did a few things around Maryland and Asheville, North Carolina. Went up through Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Columbus, St. Louis.
Right.
Yeah, just kind of make a loop.
What's your most satisfying musical experience?
Satisfying? Oh, I think performing.
Yeah.
And performing with other people primarily. I like that best. Everything clicks.
Yeah.
And you're working and the audience is in with it, and there are those moments when you've got them fascinated. And
How often? What are the best sort of audiences? How does that happen very often when you just get the perfect audience?
no, it doesn't happen very often. Perfect audience is close in, and they sit in close together, and they're not too far away, and they're not all talking. And
yeah. That's the bane of most musicians, isn't it? An audience that just can't keep his mouth shut.
yeah, right. Although sometimes I do things that I designed that I learn with with in mind playing as background,
Yeah.
like playing in a restaurant.
Right.
And that's fine for, you know, I don't mind doing that. But sometimes I wish someone would listen.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah.
And if you're going to sit in front of the table right in front of me, I would hope you sat there because you wanted to listen to the music, not
Right.
because you wanted to talk loudly and scream at each other.
Don't make too much noise with your silverware. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Clanking spoons.
Do you do restaurant work very often?
Oh, now and again, whenever I can. It's that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I'd like to do restaurants, play at restaurants, but it's it's a hard sell, banjo.
Really?
Yeah. I think that the owners are afraid of the banjo. Maybe it's too hillbilly, and they're trying to serve like nice food, you know, and they don't want this hillbilly thing going on. Or, I don't know. I'm trying to guess.
I don't know. My mind flashed to The Devil Went Down to Georgia for a second there, but
Yeah.
they were playing with fiddles.
Yeah.
I don't know. People get afraid of things, you know.
Once,
Maybe they're afraid people start dancing or doing a
Maybe.
jig in the aisle.
that's right. Or sinning.
Yeah, they're sinning. You can't have that, you know.
L'Infanta March. I missed it. Missed a blue. Yeah, that's all right.
I've seen those music videos with just static cameras.
Speaking of the fiddle, I once had a restaurant gig out in California.
Yeah.
And it was for classic banjo, and that was really good, and it got me, playing a lot. But one day I brought in my fiddle,
Yeah.
and the waiter came over and said, the manager says that you're supposed to stop playing the fiddle. Somebody complained it was making them ill. It was upsetting them or making
my
them
God.
nervous or something. And then the next week I was fired.
Wow.
Even though I stopped. And you know how they fire you at a restaurant? They pretend that you don't exist when you walk in.
Yep. Oh, that's sad. That's sad. Yeah, this is horrible.
Oh gosh.
You can't force culture on people.
No, you can't.
No, you can't.
No.
Yeah.
I've been trying to learn more classical music with that in mind.
What sort of classical music?
Well, Brahms waltz and some light classics like there's a gavotte and some things that are more like Austrian.
Yeah.
Beer garden maybe things, marchy things, and some mazurkas.
Speaking of, what's a mazurka?
A mazurka is a snappy little piece in 3/4 time.
Okay.
It's an Eastern European dance. Chopin made very elaborate ones, but they were folk mazurkas, and every country seemed to have mazurkas.
Yeah.
Around 1890s. There were mazurkas in every country, Spanish mazurkas and Italian mazurkas and American mazurkas.
They went berserker for the mazurka.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I particularly like that third piece you did. That reminded me of John Philip Sousa.
Yeah, isn't that a nice piece?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I played that at the Banjo contest.
Yeah.
And did well with it.
Is there a piece that you have tried over the years that you just haven't gotten right yet?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it takes me years to learn a piece. I'm working from usually sheet music, and I'm usually working on a dozen pieces sort of at one time.
Yeah.
And then there'll be fewer that I get more serious about.
Right.
And then after I memorize it, I want to play it for a while.
Right.
So I've kind of slowly gathered, but not a repertoire, but I forget them if I don't practice them.
Right.
And if I don't have a reason to practice them, I'm not going to practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it works around. Then I lose them, so I have to go back and I get a gig coming up, and I say, well, I got to make a list. I need to go over these pieces. I need to hammer them.
What are your favorite pieces?
Oh, I like some ragtime pieces.
Yeah.
I like marches. I didn't used to like marches, but now I've really fallen for marches on the banjo. I like to try to get so you can hear the different instruments and their little drum effects by putting those little quick rolls in.
Right.
Those are fun. I don't know. It just depends on the piece.
Yeah. When people come to you and they want to learn banjo, do they have a particular type of banjo they want to learn on?
Usually a cheap one.
I can understand this concept. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to expend too much money.
No.
So
Before you know, you can play the banjo well.
before you know, of course,
Yeah.
and then they're hard to play and they hurt your hands and and they sound awful. And so how do you keep going? Say, even worse with the violin, you get a crummy violin and you can't stand to listen to it and you give up.
Yeah.
But yeah, people generally, they play what they've heard. They want to play what they've heard.
Yeah.
And I try to accommodate them. So I've written out lessons in bluegrass. I need to compile them into a book.
What kind of music do you? I always ask musicians this. What kind of music do you play just around the house?
Oh, well, if I'm just playing around the house, I don't know. Sometimes I just play mountain tunes.
Yeah.
And just kind of flail along, and or sometimes I play something I hadn't played in a while. And,
Yeah.
Something I used to like. Other times I'll be just reading. Maybe I'll pull out one of the books from my library, and just kind of read through the pieces in there and look for just see what is there. Sometimes I discover good teaching pieces, so I'll copy them out. Or I'll say, this isn't so bad. I thought this is a good little
Yeah.
piece here. I bet I could work that up with the Ozark Highballers.
What was the last music CD you bought?
Oh, I usually trade for them.
What was the last music CD that came into your hands?
My daughter is giving me a Beatles album
Ah,
because I hadn't heard any of the albums in so many years, and they, as an album, you know, they were laid out programmatically.
right.
So I thought I'd like to listen to one of those again sometime.
Yeah.
Because I don't ever listen to the golden oldies. But before that, yeah, I don't know. People give me their album. I have albums I've never opened. Sorry to say.
Yeah, I know this feeling. Yeah. Keep giving them to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't listen to much. I listen to classical music. And,
Yeah.
And in the car, I'll put on language tapes.
I was hoping to trip you up, and you're going to tell me it was Jackson or Madonna you'd bought. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Only for the covers.
Oh, there you go. Well, Clarke, I want to thank you very much for being on the show today.
Richard. Yeah.
It's been a fun show.
Good to see you again.
All right, we'll make it before 20 years next
Good.
time.
We'll do
All right, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, my name is Miguel Guevara, and you're watching Fayetteville Public Asset Television.
They're coming. Places, everybody.
Light check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Everything looks good on our end.
And lights.
Come alive with the forest. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
You turn on the television, or you pick up a newspaper magazine, and all the information you see is just controlled by a handful of corporations. So how are you or I or any of us, how can we get our messages out to people? How can you tell people what you care about? You can go on Facebook and compete with hundreds of people who post things that may or may not be true. You can go on Twitter and post things with a handful of characters, because Twitter is really the place for literate people to hang out. Or you could go in with a sandwich board and walk the streets. You could write a letter to the editor. Or, even better, you could go to public access television. Public access serves your community on a first-come, first-served basis. And whether you're rich or poor, doesn't matter. It's first come, first served. Everyone in the community is welcome to come to public access and talk about not only the issues that are important to them, but if you have a poem to recite, a story to tell, a song to sing, just anything at all that's in your mind or heart to tell, you come to public access. Public access in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where I'm speaking right now, has been around since 1980, and I've seen it change events in Fayetteville. And the nice thing about public access now in the 21st century is that it's not just on a television channel, but it's also on the internet, so you can reach people around the world. So if you feel frustrated at not being able to talk to people, not being able to get your message out, and you think there's no way to do it, well, take heart, there is. Public access, it's a vital component of our First Amendment rights. So public access, like the man says, use it or lose it.
It would be really hard to raise your hand in this audience. And in some ways, that's kind of what it's like for us to come out. To come out in a hostile group of people, or what we perceive as a hostile group of people. So this next song is about coming out. Wasn't that amazing how I made that little transition? Straight from Bob Dylan to coming out. I've worked at the same place for nearly 8 years now, and most of that time, well, I've really never gone up to anybody and said, hey, I'm a lesbian, how about you? Never have done that at all, and I know for a long time I was really nervous for anybody to know, and in the last couple of years, I've invited some people to come here and sing, which was very nerve-wracking to me, and one of their responses was, they sat out in the audience, and I went up to them at the halftime, intermission, whatever it is, and I said to him, now you know kind of why I've not invited you every time I've sang, because a couple of them had like badgered me. Tell me when you're going to sing. Tell me when you're going to sing so I can come hear you. And I'd always just forgotten to tell them. And one of them said, well, oh yeah, we knew about that, but we didn't know you were funny. I guess I'm kind of serious at work. Well, I wrote this song primarily when I was thinking about coming out at work. And it really made me nervous, and they'd known me for a long time, and I just could not imagine how they would like me any less, or trust me, or respect me any less, just because of this one thing. So that's kind of what this song is based on. And if you've not ever had to come out, maybe this can help you just understand what some of the fears are about doing that. I thought coming out to you today, I didn't know exactly what to say. Maybe introduce you. This is my lover, say she's a lesbian. I think it's time I told my family, this roommate thing is kind of old for me. I'm tired of pretending I'm straight and alone. I'd like to share my life with them. I thought of maybe coming out at work. Scared somebody there might go berserk, or feel morally obligated to jerk with my job, my life. And I suppose you're wondering why I feel the need to tell you now. You see, I'm tired, so tired of living this lie. I've got to get myself free somehow. I won't live my life just to please. I won't hide away to keep you at ease. I'm here just like you, to live and to grow. I'm strong and I'm proud, and I want you to know. And so I thought of coming out to you today, not entirely sure just what I'd say. Maybe casually mention in conversation my girlfriend this or that. I'm hoping maybe you will realize the fear I have of seeing hatred in your eyes. You've known me for all this time. Surely you'll see that I'm no different than before I told you. And if you think you don't know anyone gay, you're in for a big surprise. We are your neighbors, co-workers, your family and friends, and it's time you open your eyes. We won't live our lives just to please. We won't hide away to keep you at ease. We're here just like you, to live and to grow. We're strong and we're proud, and we want you to know. And so we thought of coming out to you today, and you can come out too if you want to play. This closet's a mess, it's too much stress, and so we're coming out, and we're not going away. We're coming out.
This is not a time to falter. This is not a time to fall. This is not a time to give up what you have struggled to create. There is still a power in the earth no man can break. Take courage, be not afraid. This is not a time to falter. This is not a time to fall. This is not a time to give up what you have struggled to create. There is still a power in the earth no man can break. Take courage, be not afraid. Yes, it is true. There really are people in power who are nothing but schoolyard bullies, stupid and mean. And they're pushing on you, not even for their own gain. No logic can explain and nobody wins. But they can't hold a candle to you when you stand with your feet firm on the path you love and true power in your hand. True power, true power, true power. This is not a time to falter. This is not a time to fall. This is not a time to give up what you have struggled to create. There is still a power in the earth no man can break. Take courage, be not afraid. All around you, people can look you in the eye, tell you powerful lies, leave you confused. So what can you do? The power is not its own, and aim higher, my friend, and it'll come true. Because they can't hold a candle to you when you stand with your feet firm on the path you love and true power in your hand. True power, true power, true power. This is not a time to falter. This is not a time to fall. This is not a time to give up what you have struggled to create. There is still a power in the earth no man can break. Take courage, be not afraid. This is not a time to falter. This is not a time to fall. This is not a time to give up what you have struggled to create. There is still a power in the earth no man can break. Take courage, be not afraid. Take courage, be not afraid.
You turn on the television or you pick up a newspaper magazine, and all the information you see is just controlled by a handful of corporations. So how are you or I or any of us, how can we get our messages out to people? How can you tell people what you care about? You can go on Facebook and compete with hundreds of people who post things that may or may not be true. You can go on Twitter and post things with a handful of characters, because Twitter is really the place for literate people to hang out. Or you could go in with a sandwich board and walk the streets. You could write a letter to the editor. Or, even better, you could go to public access television. Public access serves your community on a first-come, first-served basis. And whether you're rich or poor, doesn't matter. It's first-come, first-served. Everyone in the community is welcome to come to public access and talk about not only the issues that are important to them, but if you have a poem to recite, a story to tell, a song to sing, just anything at all that's in your mind or heart to tell, you come to public access. Public access in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where I'm speaking right now, has been around since 1980, and I've seen it change events in Fayetteville. And the nice thing about public access now in the 21st century is that it's not just on a television channel, but it's also on the internet, so you can reach people around the world. So if you feel frustrated at not being able to talk to people, not being able to get your message out, and you think there's no way to do it, well, take heart, there is. public access. It's a vital component of our First Amendment rights. So, public access, like the man says, use it or lose it.
Politics in general and jobs that don't pay enough, 40-hour work weeks, books full of boring stuff, schools that should teach but kids don't learn a thing. These are a few of my least favorite things. Healthcare that won't heal and how people treat the earth, paying tolls and taxes, disbelief in self-worth, bitter cold winters that cut into spring. These are a few of my least favorite things. Religions that claim they're true, don't get me started. Standards that double and people cold-hearted. Judgment and bias when freedom don't ring. These are a few of my least favorite things. All the lying, all the killing. When I'm depressed and sad, I add that to all of my least favorite things, and then I feel really bad. I feel like Julie Andrews or something.